I'm here in the dark with my mom riding in the car. We're coming home from my late grandparents' house, dropping some boxes off as my mom's getting ready to move all her stuff down to Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And Mom, I wanted to talk with you on Tidbits with Brent today. Here's Mom.
Hi, Brent.
And today we're talking about the difference in dreams and purpose. And Mom, remember when I went under in the mortgage business and real estate, and I lost all that property and all that money, and I came and lived with you again in 2009? You remember that?
I do, yeah.
I lived there about a year.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to act like this is an interview, Mom. We're just hanging out with our friends. So anyway, I came to live with you for a little over a year, and I tried to, I was real depressed. Remember that? I could barely get out of bed some days.
Yeah, I do.
And Pastor John Carmichael would come over and pray with me, and then we made him the CFO of the new mortgage company. He helped me launch. Remember that?
I do remember that, yeah.
It didn't work out too well, though, did it?
No, for some reason it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, I believe that. So we worked hard on it, but it just didn't work out. And then remember when, I hired Chris Maple, the guy that I coached at Evangel School when I coached soccer there back in the 90s.
I remember.
I hired him and trained him to be a loan officer, and he was actually my assistant. Remember that?
Yes.
And Chris and his wife Gabrielle were scheduled to go on the Haiti missions trip with Evangel School. Dr. Roger Hoagland, who leads great missions trips. And remember when Chris came in one day and said that Gabrielle's doctor said that she couldn't go on the trip because she was pregnant and they were having some complications and they didn't want her to fly. Remember
right.
that?
I remember that, yeah.
And so then what happened was Chris invited me to take her place, and all the money was raised for the trip. And so all I had to do was just slip into the slot. But, secretively, I never told anybody this. I really kind of envied Chris when I found out he was going to go to Haiti, because I wanted to go to Haiti when I heard about the earthquake that hit in 2010. But I felt like I needed to stay home and, build this business and take care of my needs. And, it's kind of a responsibility thing for me,
Right, I remember all that.
Yeah, and so when Chris asked me, all of a sudden he became the coolest guy in the world, right? Like before I was criticizing him in my mind because, neither one of us had a lot of money and he had a new family. And I thought, man, you're just kind of out of God's will here, man. You need to stay home and take care of your family. And I don't know if I ever told you that, but man, I sure was excited when he asked me to take their spot,
I remember you were, and I remember before you got that invitation, you said, I would love to go to Haiti and help those people, because it was right after the earthquake, and so you felt like it was a real blessing when you had that opportunity to go.
Yeah, it really was, and I was excited, and then we started to hit some obstacles. Chris and I had some communication issues, and I had filled out an application to get my passport, and I thought he was going to send it off to this express service and get it, overnighted so I could get my passport. And, we were about a week away from the scheduled trip, and, come about 3 or 4 days before the trip, I still didn't have a passport, and I asked Chris about it, and he hadn't gotten it done, and he thought I was going to get it done. And so at the end of the day, we ended up having to rent a car. And I tell you, that was the first miracle really that happened in the process, because my credit was nearly 500. It was definitely below 600, which was terrible credit. And we had just pulled Chris's credit for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but we knew his was about a 650, which is decent. And so what happened was we go to rent this car, and Chris had started to get a little aggravated with me because, I told him up front I really couldn't spend any time or energy even raising funds. He told me all the funds were raised, and I just, I felt like I needed to continue to focus on the business during the preparation time and not spend any time or money to get this done. And that was kind of my test to see if it was really God's plan for me to go. And so we go to rent this car, and Chris was really kind of resistant to rent it for me. With the money that he had raised, he felt like he should take that money and give it to the poor or the needy in Haiti. And I kind of felt convicted by that, but again, I made it very clear to him I didn't want to spend any time or money preparing for the trip. I needed it to just work out as easy as he said it was, or I was going to take that as a sign I wasn't supposed to go. And so what happened was we got to the rental car place, and he didn't want to pay for it, so I went ahead and decided I'd pay for it with my business account, and it was my last $400 I had on me. And then something else happened. His credit didn't pass. They wanted to do a credit check to get the car, but his credit wouldn't pass. And lo and behold, we took a shot in the dark, and my credit passed. So I had a 550 credit score, and he had like a 650, and my credit passed and his didn't. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a miracle. So I was like, maybe this really is God's will for me, and maybe I'm supposed to put some effort forth. And so I got that rental car, and I went down to to Michigan. I had to drive to Detroit, Michigan. That was the only office, the closest office available that would actually give me the passport the day that I applied. And so I get there, and I applied for my passport, and I left and ate lunch, and then I came back, and the lady handed me this envelope, and man, I was happy. I was ready to go back to Kentucky and get on the plane, a couple days later and go to Haiti. And as on my way out, I opened that envelope, and my passport wasn't in there. It was a letter of denial. Remember that?
Oh, no, I didn't know about that part.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you all those details. Well, it was a letter of denial. You're going to remember it when I tell you this part, because what they said was that the state of Kentucky had record that I was $12,000 short, or $12,000 behind on my child support. And what they didn't realize is my ex-wife had remarried and moved to Georgia, which made my kids' primary primary home in the state of Georgia. So Georgia took jurisdiction over my child support, and I had been paying her directly. You remember that part?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And so what happened was I left there pretty discouraged, but I got on the phone immediately with the state of Kentucky, with the child support division, and I explained my situation. And the girl was real nice on the phone, but she said, I'm sorry, Mr. Parker, even if we could get the proof, which we can do with a phone call, there's a mandatory 7-day waiting period to make sure that the account's clear before we can change it in the system. And so I said, man, is there anything you can do? I mean, I told her the whole situation. I'm trying to go to Haiti on this missions trip, and I think she had compassion for me and maybe honored my my desire to go and help these people. And so she said, well, I'll see what I can do. And so I went ahead and got the hotel room for another night, and I stayed another day. And she told me to call her back in the morning, so I did. And it was about 9 o'clock, and I called her, and she said, no, we don't have any answer yet. It doesn't look good. I can't get a hold of the only person that can authorize this. I just can't get a hold of them. She said, you can try back in a couple hours, but it doesn't look good. So, about 30 minutes later, I got another call from her. I did call her back, and she said, no, still no luck. That was about 11 o'clock, and she said, you can try back in a couple more hours. And so, long story longer, what happened was she called me back about 11:30 and said, yeah, we got it cleared in the system. You're good to go. She said, this has never happened before. It's a miracle. And I said, yeah, you're right, it is. So that was a second miracle, really, along the way that proved to me that I was doing the right thing. And so I went ahead on over to the passport office, and I get there and go up to the window, and they had no record of it. It had not been changed in the system. So evidently what I found out was there's two systems. There's the state system and the federal system, and it had not been changed in the federal system. And so the passport office told me I had to get a faxed letter from the child support office in Kentucky to get it changed in the federal system, and they would manually change it. Well, I called the girl back in Kentucky, and she said, well, there's no way we can do that today because the only person that can do that isn't here. That's the same person that authorized it. They're out of the office today, and there's just no way to do it. So I had pretty much given up, and I might not be telling all these details exactly right because it's been a few years, but this is pretty accurate. And so what happened was I went down into this little cafe and was just praying and saying, God, I don't understand why you take me this far and leave me here. And I'm partially complaining, but partially I'm praying in faith and asking God to show me His direction. And so about that time, I get a call back from the girl in Kentucky, and she said, good news, we got it cleared in the federal system. You can go on and get your passport. Well, this was about 2:45 in the afternoon. I do remember this specifically. And the office was scheduled to close at 3 o'clock. So I rushed up there, and I got there about 10 till 3, and the security guard was closing the door and was not going to let me in. They even said it was a federal law that once they lock that door, they can't reopen it. So I was dead in the water, man. And here the flight was leaving in 36 hours to go to Haiti with the team. And then what happened was I went ahead and got the hotel room for another night. And I got in my hotel room, and I really had kind of given up. But I said, you know what? Let's try this last hope. And I'm going to go ahead and look for another flight that will get me to Miami in time to meet the team and go on to Haiti. So I found a flight, called my friend. He got it rebooked for me because it was all on his account and everything. And then went over to the passport office and got my passport and went ahead and came back to Kentucky and went to Haiti. And what I discovered in that time in my life is that there's a difference in dreams and purpose. And my dream was to get rich. My childhood dream was to always be very wealthy, wasn't it, Mom? Yeah. I always said I was going to be a gazillionaire, right? Yeah. And although I made some good money, man, I lost it all. And it took that for God to get me to a place where I'd get to the end of myself, took me all down those obstacles, and showed me the way and proved to me what his call was on my life, which is missionary evangelism. And what I can tell you, friend, is when I do that work, I come alive in a way that nothing else on this planet makes me feel alive. And so I just want to encourage you today, you know, if you don't know Jesus, go ahead and reach out and ask him to come into your heart and be your Lord and Savior. The Bible says in Romans 10:9 that if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and God raised him from the dead, then you'll be saved. And it was that heartfelt confession that I made at 19 that led me, you know, all these years later to finally find my destiny. And, you know, Mom, you know that I've been working on a project that includes my destiny recently. And I don't know, just tell the people, do you think do you sense more life in me here in the past?
Definitely.
You know, recent times, it's like I mean, tell them.
Definitely. You can't even sleep. You're
Yeah,
so excited.
Exactly. Can't even sleep. I'm so excited. So that's it for today's Tidbits with Brent. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll talk to you on the next video. God bless.